Welcome to a new episode of Vital Steps, the space where we walk together toward a healthier and more fulfilling life. Today, we're going to talk about something that may be affecting our older adults even more than many known diseases. Did you know there's a silent, invisible condition that slowly deteriorates both the body and the mind? It's not an infection, not a nutritional issue, not even a diagnosis that can easily be seen on a test. Oftentimes, we don't even realize we're suffering from it, or that someone close to us is. It's not a bacteria. It's not a virus. And the most shocking part, it can begin with a small daily habit that seems completely harmless. Even though it doesn't show up in medical tests, this condition impacts the mind and body in deep ways. Later on, we'll talk about its specific effects on the heart, the immune system, sleep, and memory. Welcome, Dr. Adler. What is this thing that's affecting us without us even noticing?
Thank you for having me. This is a topic that deeply concerns me. Every week in my practice, I see older adults affected by this invisible illness. Even though it doesn't appear in lab results, its consequences are just as real and serious as any physical condition. It impacts quality of life, independence, and the overall well-being of those who experience it.
This sounds like a mystery. How can something so quiet be so harmful? Are you going to leave us in suspense? Or will you tell us now?
Patience. What we're starting to discuss today is a feeling that, although many don't recognize it, is affecting millions of older adults around the world. Loneliness is not just an emotional issue. It's a condition that, according to the World Health Organization, affects approximately 30% of people over the age of 65. And the most alarming part? Recent studies show that prolonged loneliness increases the risk of premature death by 50%. First, let's talk about the signs and symptoms, some of which many people may have experienced or noticed in someone close to them. That way, we can better understand why it's so urgent to address this.
Doctor, what are those silent signs? How can we tell if someone might be affected?
Many times, the signs are subtle and can be mistaken for normal aging or other illnesses. But here are some of the most common. Persistent fatigue that doesn't improve with regular rest, loss of appetite and weight without an apparent cause, difficulty sleeping or interrupted sleep, lack of interest or motivation in activities they used to enjoy, frequent feelings of sadness, anxiety, or even irritability.
This sounds a lot like depression or some kind of emotional disorder, doesn't it?
Partially, yes. But what's particular in this case is that these physical and emotional symptoms are strongly linked to an external factor, one that often goes unnoticed, and that affects both the body and the mind at the same time.
So, that external factor is the key? Can you give us a hint of what it is?
What I'm about to say may surprise many people, because it's not a virus or a traditional organic problem, but its effects are devastating.
Doctor, how does this begin? What small things should we start paying attention to?
Good question. It begins with small changes. Someone stops going out, no longer calls their friends, or lives with someone, but they hardly speak. No hugs, no meaningful conversations. And the dangerous part is that many times the person doesn't even realize it. They get used to that emptiness.
Of course, and it can seem normal. People say, they're calm, they're at home, not bothering anyone. But inside, something may be going on.
Exactly. There are studies showing that the body reacts to loneliness as if it were under constant threat. The body's alert system activates, like we're in danger, and it stays on for as long as the loneliness lasts.
So, the body suffers even if there's no external cause like an infection or a fall?
That's right. Chronic loneliness causes cortisol, the stress hormone, to rise, and that has very serious consequences for health. It raises blood pressure. It weakens the immune system. It accelerates cognitive decline, and it can trigger inflammation in organs like the heart.
And this can happen just from feeling lonely?
Yes, feeling disconnected, unheard, unseen. That's why I said earlier, You won't see this in an X-ray, but it can be just as damaging as heart disease.
Doctor, can you summarize again which parts of the body are affected?
Of course, prolonged loneliness isn't just an emotional state, it has real physical effects. For example, the heart. People who feel lonely for extended periods are at higher risk of developing high blood pressure and heart problems. I've seen patients with perfectly healthy hearts experience arrhythmias or tachycardia that stabilize once they reconnected with loved ones. The immune system. Being socially isolated can weaken our defenses. I've seen older adults get sick often, colds, infections, and improve significantly when they join social groups or reestablish contact with family. Appetite. Loneliness can take away the desire to eat. One patient told me, "Why would I cook if there's no one to sit with me?" That sentence says a lot. In a short time, she had lost weight and muscle mass. Memory. Social isolation is linked to faster cognitive decline. It's not uncommon to see frequent forgetfulness or disorientation in older adults who go days without having a real conversation. And sleep quality. Many people who feel lonely have trouble sleeping. They wake up several times during the night or suffer from insomnia, a racing mind, anxiety, sadness. All of that interferes with rest. It's not just a feeling. It has a real physical impact that can accelerate the aging of the body.
So, this isn't just an emotional issue, it's a public health warning.
Exactly. And there's still a lot more to talk about. Later on, we'll explore how this process can be reversed from home with simple, human, and powerful actions.
Doctor, this feeling of loneliness we're describing, can it lead someone to depression? Doctor.
Yes, absolutely. Prolonged loneliness not only affects the body physically, but it also has a deep impact on emotional health. Many people start with that quiet isolation and eventually develop depressive symptoms. And the tricky part is that depression in older adults often goes unnoticed or is mistaken for the natural wear and tear of aging. That's why it's so important to recognize loneliness as a risk factor and address it with the same care as any physical illness.
And what would be some signs that family members or caregivers can look out for to know whether that loneliness is turning into depression?
That's a great question. Some signs to watch for include loss of interest in activities they once enjoyed, noticeable changes in appetite or sleep, like insomnia or excessive sleeping, persistent sadness or hopelessness, increased isolation, avoiding even phone calls or visits, lack of energy for everyday tasks. If someone shows several of these symptoms for more than 2 weeks, it's advisable to seek professional help.
And for those listening who feel that loneliness is starting to affect them, what advice would you give to stop it from progressing into depression?
The first step is to not ignore those feelings and not to downplay the importance of asking for help. Reaching out for support from family, friends, or professionals is key. It's also crucial to try to maintain or reconnect with activities that bring meaning and connection, even if it's hard at first. Sometimes just taking a small step, like making a phone call or going for a walk, can make a huge difference. Let's remember, depression is not a weakness, and it's not something one can simply snap out of through willpower. It's a medical condition that deserves attention and treatment.
Thank you, Doctor. I think it's important that our listeners know that loneliness and depression are real problems. But there are ways forward. Doctor, can you share a real-life story? Because maybe someone listening is thinking, I'm alone, there's no way out for me.
Yes, of course, today I want to share the story of Don Ernesto. When I met him, he was 72 years old. He had been living alone for 8 years since his wife passed away. His children lived far away, and although they called him, he always said, "I'm fine." But he wasn't. He slept poorly. He had lost weight. He had stopped going out. One day he fell while walking to the bathroom. Fortunately, it wasn't serious, but it was a wake-up call.
And that's when you saw him?
Yes, but the worst part wasn't the fall. It was what we discovered afterwards. Don Ernesto had very low blood pressure, a weakened immune system, and was beginning to show signs of cognitive decline. But it wasn't a new illness. It was loneliness acting silently for years.
Wow. And how did he manage to get out of that?
Here's the amazing part. I suggested he sign up for a community walking group for seniors. At first, he hesitated. Me? With strangers? He said. But he went. He walked in silence until one day someone said, "Good morning." Then another and another.
And that's where it all began.
Yes. Today, Don Ernesto is a different man. He exercises 3 times a week. He's part of a book club. He's regained 4 kilos of muscle mass. But most importantly, he laughs again. He wakes up with a desire to live each day. He's alive.
Doctor, this testimony really moves me because it shows that it's never too late. Even if someone has spent years in silence, there's a way out.
There's always a door. Sometimes we just need someone to knock from the outside so we can open it from within. One story I'll never forget is Rosora's, a 70-year-old Puerto Rican woman living with her husband in New Jersey. He was a good man, hardworking, present, but very quiet, extremely quiet. Rosora used to tell me, "Doctor, we live in the same house, we sleep in the same bed, but I feel like I live alone." At first, I thought it was a minor emotional issue, but Rosora came with clear physical symptoms: high blood pressure, irritable bowel, muscle pain, and constant fatigue. She didn't want to go out. She didn't feel like talking to anyone. Her lab tests came back normal, but her body was exhausted. Why? One day she whispered to me, almost embarrassed, "Doctor, I need someone to talk to me, to listen to me. I don't want to just be with someone. I want to feel connected."
That's powerful and so real. You'd think that if someone lives with a partner, they can't possibly feel lonely.
Exactly. But loneliness isn't about lacking people. It's about lacking emotional connection. And we see that all the time. People who are physically accompanied, but emotionally isolated. With Rosora, we worked a lot. At first, just her, writing workshops, movement therapy. Then little by little, he joined in too. They started having a weekly moment to talk. No TV, no phones. Today, they write to me together. They send photos of themselves cooking while listening to salsa music.
What a transformation. Doctor, what can people do to prevent or even reverse the effects caused by loneliness?
There are several effective strategies, and the most important thing is to know that you can always take a step forward, even a small one. Here are some of them. Encourage and maintain active, meaningful social relationships. It's not about having dozens of friends, it's about cultivating real connections. A weekly phone call with a child, a daily chat with a neighbor, or sharing a coffee with someone close can make a big difference. Join group or community activities. I've had patients who changed radically after joining a ceramics class, a walking group, or a reading circle. At first, it was hard to take that first step, but soon they didn't want to miss a single day. Find hobbies or volunteer work that provide meaning and human contact. Use technology as a bridge. When physical distance is a challenge, video calls, voice messages, or even WhatsApp groups can help maintain connection. Teaching older adults to use these tools can also be a powerful act of care. Seek professional help. When emotional symptoms appear, such as constant sadness, anxiety, changes in sleep or appetite, it's important to ask for help. Psychologists, doctors, social workers, there's a whole support network available. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage.
And what about those who don't have close social networks or live in remote areas?
In those cases, community centers, senior social groups, adult day programs, and companionship services are essential. Even simple activities like walking with a neighbor or attending a local workshop can make a real difference.
What message would you give to those listening right now and feeling that loneliness? Doctor, first, I want to tell them, you are not alone. Even if it feels that way, there are always paths to reconnect. The first step is to seek contact, ask for help, and try to come out of that isolation. Doctor, what can we do as a family when we notice that mom, dad, or grandma hardly wants to go out anymore, that they're withdrawn, low in energy. How can we help without invading their space or making them feel even worse?
Great question. Because even with good intentions, families can sometimes act out of urgency or fear, and that can backfire, causing even more withdrawal and pain. The first thing is to not minimize what they're going through. Avoid saying things like, "You've always been like that." Don't be dramatic, just go out for a bit and you'll feel better. That only deepens the isolation.
So basically, no more of those canned phrases like, you just need to try harder.
Exactly. A better approach is to ask, "How have you been feeling lately? Is there something you miss doing?" And then, listen without judgment. Also, families can create small but meaningful rituals. A daily phone call at the same time, a shared lunch every Sunday. You don't need to change their entire life. What matters is consistency and emotional presence.
That's so important, doctor. Because sometimes we think we need to do something big, like gifting a vacation or moving them into a facility so they're less alone.
And often, the most powerful thing is the simplest. An unhurried conversation, a genuine hug, an afternoon looking through old photos and listening to their stories.
It really makes you think how often we're so caught up in our own routines, we don't notice someone right next to us is silently asking for help.
Exactly. Loneliness is expressed more in silence than in words. But when the family is attentive, they can be the first bridge back to life.
But, doctor, what if the older person lives alone or doesn't have much family around? Are there other initiatives or places that can help reduce that loneliness?
Yes, and that's a crucial point. There's a whole ecosystem of possible solutions that's growing in many cities around the world, even in small communities. For example, senior day centers where older adults gather to play games, exercise, cook, or simply chat. Libraries and cultural centers offering free or low-cost workshops, everything from painting and yoga to theater and gardening. And in some countries, there are companion phone lines where a senior can call just to talk to someone and feel heard.
Phone lines just for conversation? I didn't know that existed.
Yes, these lines aren't for emergencies. They're simply there to listen, and the impact they have is tremendous. Sometimes one daily conversation can brighten someone's entire week. Let me share a story I heard from a volunteer involved in one of these programs. Anna volunteers at a community center in a rural area. She used to visit Don Luis, an elderly man who lived alone and had lost contact with his community. At first, Don Luis barely spoke and didn't want to go outside. But over time, thanks to their walks together and the workshops at the center, Don Luis began to regain his joy, to share his stories, and to feel like an active part of his community again. Anna told me that the experience taught her something powerful. No one should ever feel alone, and the simple act of being there for someone can truly change a life. These stories remind us that even in places where help seems scarce, community and the willingness to be present can make all the difference.
How inspiring, doctor. I love how ordinary people like Anna can become such powerful agents of change in the lives of our elders. It makes me realize that beyond programs or institutions, what truly matters is human commitment and a genuine desire to be there for someone. I think that's a key message for everyone listening. Anyone can be that support, that connection, and in doing so, make a huge difference in someone's health and happiness.
That's where the community plays a vital role. A neighbor who organizes tea gatherings, a church that opens its hall for games or movie nights once a week, a health center that coordinates group walks for exercise and conversation. You don't need a lot of money. What you need is willingness and human connection.
So, not waiting around for the government to do it all. Sometimes, the first step starts between neighbors.
Exactly. And if you're listening to this and you have time, energy, or simply some kindness to give, you can be the beginning of something that changes an older person's life. And even though many older adults didn't grow up with technology, that doesn't mean they can't benefit from it. Today, there are apps and platforms designed specifically to be intuitive and senior-friendly. For example, Papa, an app where young volunteers offer virtual or in-person companionship to older adults. Get Set Up, which offers free online classes for people over 60. Everything from cooking to yoga to using a smartphone. A Mintro, which connects older adults with shared interests to spark new friendships. Even apps like WhatsApp or Facebook, which many already know, can be powerful tools if used for forming community groups or scheduling regular family video calls. The key is to walk alongside them in the learning process, teaching with patience, showing step by step. And the most beautiful part is, they often end up teaching us about empathy, perseverance, and the joy of learning.
That's so powerful.
This issue of loneliness is an urgent call for us to care for each other as a community. It's not just the responsibility of healthcare professionals, it's on all of us. Each one of us can be that bridge, that gesture that changes someone's day, or even their life.
Thank you, Doctor. Truly, thank you for this conversation.
And to those listening, we leave you with a heartfelt invitation. Today, make that phone call. Visit a neighbor. Send the message you've been putting off. It may seem small, but every little act is a powerful medicine against loneliness.
If this episode helped you understand the real impact of loneliness, get ready for what's next. Because in our next episode, we're going to explore a surprisingly simple yet powerful technique that's revolutionizing the way many older adults are regaining energy, clarity, and well-being. A modern practice with ancient roots.
As old as the human body itself, but very modern in its context and how it's applied today. No medication needed, no expensive devices, just a little intention and curiosity. That said, there are many versions out there promising magical results. So the big question is, does it really work? Or is it just another passing trend?
We'll find out together in the next episode of Vital Steps. Don't miss it. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might be looking for a natural way to feel better each day. Today, gift this episode as if extending a hand. We never know who might be needing these words at just the right moment.
And remember, the opposite of loneliness isn't just being surrounded by people, it's feeling connected. And that begins with a single step.
Thanks for joining us on Vital Steps. See you next time.